Assalamualaikum and thank you for tuning into the Islam Dunk Show. I'm your host, Ibrahim, and we have a fantastic show lined up for you today. Before we begin, just a couple of announcements, just to get you guys all in the loop. Make sure you're all aware of everything that's going on in the community. Today, at the Rose City Islamic Center, there's a free photography lesson. It's part of the family night at the Rose City Islamic Center. It's going to start today at 8:30 p.m. and basically it's going to be an information session about how to take better pictures. So many of you that are recently in the hobby of taking pictures, or you're always wondering how does your friend put such an amazing picture on Instagram or an amazing photo on Facebook, and you've been jealous this whole time wondering what's the deal, why do you suck, why are they so much better than you? Ultimately, today is going to be the day for you to figure out the basics. So it's a photo 101 class. And also this Sunday, May 5th, we are going to be participating in the MS Walk. So the Muslim community is participating in the MS Walk. So we're hoping to raise awareness about multiple sclerosis. It's a very serious issue in the community, and we need to do our part to stand and walk and show our commitment to fighting this disease, and to show our commitment to helping out society at large. This is a great opportunity. Check-in starts at 8 a.m. and the walk will begin at 10 a.m. We'll be starting the walk at Assumption High School, and that's at 1100 Huron Church Road. We'll be going from there onward, and it's supposed to be, I believe it's about 5 kilometers, I think. I'm not sure 100%. Somehow I remember that number, but I can't see it anywhere. But either way, it's a nice leisurely walk. The entire community is going to be there from all over Windsor to show their support. This is the day to do the walk, so please show yourself. Don't hide in your bed. Don't hide under the blankets. Don't hide in your home. Come out. It'll be a sunny day, inshallah, and it's the perfect time to start the Sunday. Bring your family, bring your friends, and let's contribute to this society, inshallah. Today's topic that I wanted to speak to you guys with, inshallah, is an extremely, extremely important topic. And the reason why it's so important is because you, as a human being, as a person listening to the Islam Dunk Show today, have been selectively chosen to be an individual that has an impact on society. And I think that's one thing that I can honestly say, that the purpose of the Islam Dunk Show is really to begin to create people that care about their society, people that care about themselves, people that care about their community, people that care about their home. And many a times when you're faced with people talking to you and asking you questions in particular, the way some of us answer could really be counterproductive to everything you thought you were doing. So if you walk the walk, right, you look like a Muslim, right? You have a long beard, or you wear a hijab, or you wear an abaya, and you look serious, and people can tell, oh wow, this guy's a Muslim. I'm not sure if they will think you're instantly friendly or not, but for sure they look at you as a Muslim, and they come to you and say, oh Fatima, or oh Muhammad, what does Islam say about this? And then you answer in such a horrendous way that not only is that person never going to talk to you about Islam again, never going to come and approach you to ask you about Islam again, but at the same time, there is no way on earth that you're contributing to society in a positive way. And a hadith that I wanted to mention, a narratic tradition of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he mentions this, and he says it so eloquently, and so much lessons can be acquired from this, is that he says that may Allah brighten a person who hears a hadith from us and reports it as he heard it. For perhaps the one whom the hadith is reported to is more understanding than the one who reported it to them. And that was mentioned in Tirmidhi. And what's really important, and what I really want everybody to get out of today's episode or today's show, is there's really a wisdom in talking to people. There should be a strategy in your mind, and there should be a sense of love, a sense of care, a sense of understanding, and most importantly, a sense of truly displaying Islam as it should be. And very importantly, here in our local city, wherever you are in the world, there are people that have an understanding about Islam based on what they see on television, based on what they heard about in their church, based on what their friend told them about. And so they really have zero experience with a real Muslim, with an actual living, breathing Muslim. And I wouldn't be surprised if people would come up to you, and depending on how integrated you are in society, and be surprised to find out that you are actually a Muslim. They would be shocked because you don't match up in their mind as the image of what a Muslim is. They might think that you're actually nice, you're polite, you don't seem violent. How could you be a Muslim? So it's a very extremely interesting perspective that I wanted to take you on a ride for today. And the purpose of today is to really understand not just this hadith that I had initially mentioned, but to really focus on the way that the message of Islam should be given, and the way to talk to people so they actually will learn from you, will understand where you're coming from, and hopefully build that bridge in society, that when people hear about Islam, when people hear about Muslims, they will say, you know what, I know Sarah, I know Mahmoud, I know Tariq, and these are nice people. And the media is simply just lying. The media is simply just trying to scare me. And, that those billions of Muslims that are around the world, they're not that bad after all. They're nice people, and I have nothing bad to say about them. But we need to get to that place, right? And how to get to that place, that's what we're going to talk to you guys about today, is how do we get there? Now, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ often would address those present according to their intellectual capacities. And he mentions, and there's a hadith narrated by Abu Dawood, that to treat people according to their ranks, ability, and status. So that's number one. So you have to know who you're talking to. So you can't talk to somebody that never went to high school, that never went to university, that doesn't know how to read, and start dropping, Plato and, all these sort of Greek philosophers on them, trying to make them understand where you're coming from. You need to cater your language, cater your way in talking, your style of talking to the person you're talking to. We can't just brush the entire society with the same stroke. People are different. People have different ways of understanding. People have different ways of listening. And you need to be able to engage in that. So that's very important. Very, very important. So somebody that you would say one message to would be completely different than you would say another message to. And you're trying to convey the exact same thing. But just because this guy is a PhD in mechanical engineering and this guy happens to be a bricklayer, you have to be able to make sure that both of them are satisfied with your answer, with what you're saying to them. And no example I can think of that better suits this parallel is the very famous hadith, very famous story about the man that migrated from Mecca to Medina because he intended to marry a woman called Qais. And many of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with this story. And it's a very, very common, very, very familiar story. Many khutbahs are based on this story. The whole intention thing comes up in this concept here. But for those that are unaware, those that are hearing the story for the very first time, I will go into it that way. We don't assume that you don't know it. You know what I mean? This is what I'm talking about. You have to have that groundwork when you talk to people. So the woman, basically, she said that she will accept this man's proposal only if he migrated. And thus he became known as the migrator to Qais. And the man then went and asked the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ about the status of his action. Will he get the reward of making hijrah? Because there's a major reward for the people that left from Mecca to Medina, because they left for the sake of Allah. They left to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to please their Creator. So he wanted to join them in this reward. He wanted to make sure that he was part of these people, that he didn't miss this amazing opportunity. And to this, and this is where everybody needs to pay attention, right? This is the gem, this is the jewel that I'm giving you today. To this, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ replied and says, actions are by their intentions, and every man or every woman shall have what they intended. Thus, he whose migration was for Allah and His Messenger ﷺ, his migration was for Allah and His Messenger ﷺ. And he whose migration was to achieve some worldly benefit or to take some woman in marriage, his migration for that for which he migrated. And this is the hadith. This is how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said it. And all of our lessons today are going to be extracted from this amazing hadith. What's important for people that are, considerate, for people that care about society, for people that care about, Islam, and they want to be good Muslims, and they want to help out in society, and they want to make sure that Islam is properly represented and properly heard of, you have to be thinking. You have to be analytical. You have to look deep. You have to really analyze everything. You can't just read verses from the Quran or read verses of the hadith and just assume that you got it because you read it, so yeah, I got it. There are lessons in everything. And the deeper you dig, the more and more jewels you will find. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ first stated a universal rule, right? And this is how we should really phrase our answers when people come to us and ask us things. That he states the universal rule, that actions are by their intentions, and every man or woman shall have what they intended. So he applies this universal rule to two general categories: doing something good for the hereafter and doing something good for this world. And then he places the actual case in hand, migrating for the purpose of marriage. He puts it all in one nice package, right? That everything is there. So the extremely important thing here is that one of the strengths of this approach, so this is an approach, and I want you to really comprehend that this is a strategy, this is a concept, and this is something that really, really needs to be implemented, I think. That the strength of this concept, or this way of doing things, is that you not only answer the specific question, but you also give the tools, or you equip the questioner with knowledge necessary to answer any other question of similar nature. So you don't do it basically in a specific manner. You give him the general understanding, or you give her the general rule. And furthermore, your questioner now benefits from the fact that you expose your line of reasoning. So they understand where you're coming from. So they have a general rule that they just learned that they can apply for many different things. And at the same time, you've opened up their minds to a new concept that they might have not been aware of. Initially, the brother, the Sahabi that came to the Prophet ﷺ, he was wondering if he will get the reward of the migration, of the hijrah. That's his question. So the answer could have been, no, you won't. Right? And that would have been a valid answer. It would have been a poor answer. Nobody would have learned anything from it. We wouldn't have an episode today if that was the answer. And, who knows how that individual would feel after such a straightforward, harsh answer. You wouldn't know how he would feel. But when you give basically a story, when you give an actual lesson, or you actually give feedback and understanding, and you break down and you spend time in the answer, not only are you making a connection with the person you're talking to, but you're also educating the person you're talking to in a way that not only are they receptive to the information, but they also are using this information to go further in their life, and will be able to really base their education, base their understanding on an actual principle that you taught them. And that's very important. That's very important. Because you want to always be able to give people tools, right? You don't want to just be spoon feeding. It's just like a baby. If all you ever do is feed them milk, right? And you never gave them food, and then all of a sudden, here you go, here's dinner. You give them a fork and a knife and a piece of steak. How is that kid going to figure out what to do? There was never that teaching process. It's just, here you go, I just spoon-fed you everything, now you're on your own. And you see that, people get really scared sometimes, and people get really nervous, and you see that some people have a very difficult way of understanding things because they've always been simply spoon-fed their entire life, their understanding of Islam, and they've never really spent time on themselves. They've never, invested in themselves. So they're useless, really. So this strategy of making this general rule is extremely important. And this method is also utilized by many Islamic jurists when they, like the Prophet Muhammad, answered questions. More important, as Ibn Qayyim mentions, it also allows the breadth of the jurist to answer questions by including additional but relevant knowledge. And by extension, it is completely acceptable for a Muslim to ask this jurist or mufti for his reasoning when the later issues a legal response or a fatwa. And the jurist should not be offended by this. And that would indicate his deem himself above this prophetic method. So reasons, asking why and how come, and understanding has to be there. People cannot just be accepting, this is haram, move on. This is halal, move on. Sure, some things are completely black and white, but other things, if you really want to understand, you should have that yearning and that wanting to learn. Right? We shouldn't accept anything just because. Right? We should really try and understand, and of course, not simply try and be, according to our desires and our whims, and, it doesn't make sense to me, therefore I'm not going to accept it. You have to also humble yourself and accept the fact that you are simply a human being, and some things can be, above and beyond your comprehension, your understanding. That's extremely important. But once the understanding is given to you, once the explanation is given to you, you should try and internalize it. You should try and understand it. And this approach of moving from general to particular is also employed in the sciences of qawa'id al-fiqhiyya, right? And these are the legal maxims and which unfortunately is not studied except by very dedicated students on the Islamic sciences, and more specifically those who are training to issue legal fatwas. But this is the technique, right? That you answer a simple question, you go into very specific. And lastly, it is important for us to note that this is not something jurists or scholars employ just to flex their intellectual muscles. As well, we have to really realize a discourse which accommodates everyone. And it is also extremely important that we really appreciate and we really understand and we keep alive our sophistication and our intellectual abilities. We need to really keep it, at a high level. We need to always be reading. We need to always be educating ourselves. We need to constantly be trying to improve ourselves. And we need not to quote a quote, to dumb everything down, right? All in the name of accessibility. Sometimes it's extremely important for a student or somebody to actually up their game, right? That you challenge them with something and you provoke their mind a little bit, and they need to think, they need to research, they need to really, chew this up a little bit. That it can't be digested in one day, that you have to think about it, you have to reflect about it. And again, it goes to that whole spoon feeding concept, that you can't just, boom, give everything just like that. And of course, that this method is probably not the easiest to grasp at first. Right? It's much easier when somebody asks you a question, you say yeah, or you say no, or you're wrong, or don't do it, or go ahead, it's okay. That's really easy to do, right? And therefore, it's needn't be used all the time. You don't have to do it all the time. However, this is the key here. However, to be better equipped, right? Better equipped, right? Like you can buy a car with stick shift and no air condition. But to have navigation, to have automatic transmission with paddle shifters, right? To have your iPod dock, to be better equipped, it's important to really understand how to talk to people. And this will allow a person to acquire a new level of understanding, one that is deeper than simple do's and don'ts. And this eventually will lead a person to grasp the aims and purposes of Sharia, at least to some degree. That you'll have that much more knowledge, that you're not accepting things for yes and no's. You want to know the depth of it. You want to know the backgrounds to it. You want to really understand. And that's important. That's really important, because if you look around, a lot of people know that Muslims fast. A lot of people. And not so many people know why they fast. Specifically talking to Muslims, right? Specifically when you ask Muslims, are you going to fast Ramadan? Oh yeah, for sure. I always fast Ramadan. All right, why do you fast Ramadan? Oh, well, because you gotta. I have to. Yeah, why? And they don't know. Or they'll say, according to what I understand, you want to feel the way the poor feel, or it's good for your body. It's a it's a detox. It's a this, it's a that, it's a this, it's a that. And they're stumbling. They're hoping that they hit something right. But that's not the reason, right? That's not the reason. So it's important that you really think before you speak, obviously, but how you speak and what you say and how you give answers are extremely important. And if we truly wish to emulate the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if we truly wish to really be guided by him and have him as a role model, then we should think back to this question when the man, he went to do his hijrah, right? When he migrated, and he just wanted to know, is he amongst those that have the reward of performing hijrah? And you have to remember that that's a yes or no question. Am I going to get the reward of performing the hijrah, O Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? It's a yes or no question. And the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I'll remind you again, says that actions are by their intentions, and every man shall have what they intended. So he gives a rule. He gives a universal rule. And then he goes a little bit further, and he says, those who migrated for Allah and His Messenger, his migration was for Allah and His Messenger. So he gives now the background knowledge of why his wouldn't be accepted. He doesn't say yours isn't. He says, this is what is required if you want your deed to be accepted. But he still goes that one more step, and very kindly and politely, and he says, and he whose migration was to achieve some worldly benefit. So now he gives the opposite. Rather than doing it for the sake of Allah, he did it for a worldly benefit. Or the specific reason to take some moment in marriage. Now he's directly talking to this man. His migration was for that which he migrated. There's no abuse. There's no making the brother feel intellectually handicapped. No. Very calmly, very politely, very educationally. That now, this brother that received this advice, he knows for certain how his actions are always going to be judged. Forever, he has learned a lesson. And he now learns why he should be doing all his actions. And he also learns what he should never intend. Right? He learns that, you know what, I missed out. If I had simply made my intent His Messenger, I would have had this reward. But since I didn't make it, and I was simply chasing the dunya, and that was my only motivation, that was my only reason, then I took this hit. And specifically because I went after this. So inshallah we'll conclude with that. We're just about out of time. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wal 'asr, innal insana fi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilu s-solihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. And we will see you again next week, same time, 8:30. And keep in mind, we do have the MS Walk this Sunday. So please show up, come out, walk. We're at the Assumption High School, right on 1100 Huron Church. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.